Hi, everybody. This is Matt Hawes of Comics Unlimited in Evansville, Indiana, and of The Happy Show. All the world over, I guess. I wanted to talk about the show I just finished doing. It was the Southern Indiana Comic Book Show, and for me, it was a great success. It looked like we had plenty of people, just like the first show. The first show was back in May. The second show was yesterday, which was at the time of this video. Regardless of the time of the video, it was August 20th. And so I'm August 20th, 2022. It's put on by a friend of mine named Robert Arnold. He's a great guy. I've known him for close to 30 years, if not exactly around that range, about 30 years. And, he's been a great customer of mine. We both actually met as dealers at the Diamond Flea Market back when he was in college, and I was out, I had already been out of high school and such, and not yet a shop owner or what have you. This was my first foray, really, setting up at the Diamond back then into selling comics, and beyond doing a few conventions and stuff around the state. There was the Indianapolis show called the Ash Comics Show that I was regularly set up at, which I think still continues to this day even. But I'm not 100% certain on that because I haven't done that show in a few years. I've done it since I've had the shop. After I closed my shop in 2014, I did it at least a couple times, I think. Anyway, about this show, and this was about any show in general. This was, like I said, a great show. I think Robert does a great job putting it together, especially because he's never done nothing like this before. I mean, like I said, he did sell when he was in college at a convention. He sold online, but he's predominantly he's actually a collector and a fan. He's not really a retailer. He's never been a retailer. He's not really a vendor normally, but he's becoming one more so with these shows. And the reason why I want to bring or make this video, besides just talk about, hey, it was a great experience, and if anybody who watches this video was actually at the convention, I want to thank you. I appreciate your business. We all do who set up at the show. It's great to see you out there, and hope you'll continue to come to the shows in the future. One thing I did tell Robert, one of my bits of advice, was that the shows, I do think the shows need to be spaced apart, and this is not just for his show, this is for any convention of a sort. You notice most conventions are held on an annual basis. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't have to be annual, but I really wouldn't do more than two a year if I was going to do such a thing myself. I'm not, by the way, I'm not looking to get into that area. I'm fine right now with just setting up at the other people's shows that they put together. Now, I do several shows, like this last year. I've done, there will be 5 shows I've done in a year. I'm not saying as a vendor I'm only going to do 2 shows a year, but I'm saying if you're putting on a show, you might want to do it like no more than 2 a year. And the reason why I say this is to make it a special event. And also, this is kind of backed up, and this is one of the things that also encouraged me to make this video. There's a customer that's been a regular of mine to a degree for years. I think she shopped at my shop. She definitely was at the flea market when I was set up at the flea market, and she's made out to the last couple Southern Indiana comic book shows. And Robert was asking advice, like a good organizer. He wants to know what the people think of the shows and what they would want and expect from the shows. And if you're a vendor, not just an organizer such as Robert is, but if you're a vendor, you want to pay attention to what these people say, because Robert's not just asking for himself; he's asking for all of us vendors too. And you need to pay attention to that, because that's very vital, and it can help you make more money, which of course is the reason why you're setting up if you're a vendor. So a lot of these people, it seems to be really well received, which is great. And I think Robert's done a great job with the show. And the comments, I want to address the comments she's made, so I'm trying to get this thing to show up here. There we go. So one thing she said is about the time between shows. And the reason why I want this, I already talked about that here a little bit, but I want to expand on it. Because, like I said, you want to make a special event. Like she mentioned, she says, I felt like we had just done this, and maybe if we had more time between, the repeat dealers stock may have had more variation from the last show. Exactly right. I totally agree 100% with that. If you put the shows too close together, and not only, like I said, it doesn't come off not quite as special, and you want it to be special, you want people to think of this as an event. but you also, the dealer, like she said, if you have a lot of the same dealers, those dealers need time to go through their stock and get more stuff in, because most vendors will get more stock over time. But this was like a period about 3 months, roughly, not quite 3 months, I don't think. Maybe June, July, yeah. So it was just under 3 months, I think. And again, I honestly would space them between at least 6 months apart. Um, it's fun to have the shows. It's fun to go to the shows and stuff like that. But again, just to keep that uniqueness, and also for a variation of stock and all that. Then she said, and by the way, this is funny. The reason why I also want to point this out is because Robert and I talked about what he should do with the shows. Because again, he doesn't just appeal to customers; he appeals to the other vendors and such to see what their views are. And that's actually a point I made to him the night before. I said because for the very reasons that she said, and other. Anyway, let's go to the next thing here. So she said talking about some art vendors, but only those that fit with the theme of the show. Again, I agree with that. Now, I haven't really discussed that much with him, because one thing that he's trying to do, and I want to support this as well, I don't want to get too far off from it, is he wants this to be a real comic book show. Unfortunately, over the last few decades really now, shows, because of the success of San Diego Comic-Con becoming a multimedia comic book shows have become pop culture conventions and all this stuff, and it's gotten farther and farther away from the heart of what the show should be about. Now, there's nothing wrong with pop culture conventions. In fact, I'm part of RaptorCon. I want people to come to RaptorCon. It's a great convention, and we'll have plenty of comic book dealers too, and toy dealers, and all this other stuff. And there's a place for them, and that's wonderful. It's just that the pure comic book shows have seemed to have been taking a back seat to these conventions to a degree that I think it's nice to have a pure comic book show for fans. That said, while an art dealer is not strictly speaking a comic book dealer, if they're doing comic book art and animation art, it is related enough that, and I think we do still want some variation. The problem is the variation that is there should be something like comic book artists, right? Something that's tied to the hobby directly, so I personally have nothing against that. And even a media guest that happen to be directly about, comic books related stuff. But that's a slippery slope there. I mean, again, if you don't want it to be a media guest driven show, but rather a true comic book show. So I probably would say, I could see foregoing the media guest, even if it was strictly about the comic books, movies or what have you. But I do think the artwork has a place for there. I think that goes more hand in hand directly. So I think that wasn't a bad idea, and I could see doing that. Maybe having a small artist alley, if not, however much space he's able to accommodate. I wouldn't think that'd be a bad idea. Now, here's something I practice what I preach here, and I've been preaching this forever. When I when I first, start setting up at shows, but especially when I opened my comic shop in 1996, my first and foremost rule was I want it to be done the way I would want it to be done if I was a customer going to that shop. I tried to look at it from the customer's eyes, not about the retailer's eyes. And unfortunately, too many retailers, and this mostly has to do with shops, but it can't affect conventions, so I'm mentioning it because it spills over. They more think about what is in their own best interest or their own comfort and all this. It's like, no. You're setting up to sell to the public, and you're wanting their money. You kind of bend over backwards to make them happy. You got to do stuff, not to the point where you accept, like abuse or anything from rotten customers or what have you. But I'm talking about in terms of customer service. You try your damnedest to do as much good customer service as you can. That means acknowledging a customer and trying to engage with them as much as you can. Now, at the same time, I can be a bit chatty. So you do also sometimes, that's something I need to work on, is pull back some. I don't want to, annoy a customer or distract them so much that they don't want to, or don't have the time to actually look through stuff and buy. That if I have a weakness or a failing, I own up to that one. I know that sometimes I just need to shut up for a little bit and let the people go through the stock. But some people, the downside, because I still think this is better. I'm not just saying because it's something I personally have done. When I talk with people. But the downside, if you the flip side's worse, is what I'm getting at. The flip side, if those people who don't look at the customers, don't address them, look down, or basically, only when the person's getting ready to pay them money do they even give me an acknowledgement, or if they're just watching them, just make sure they ain't selling their books or something. No, you gotta have some personality when you're dealing with people. I know not every retailer and vendor and dealer or whatever out there is gonna be the most personable person, but at least work on it because you're dealing with the public. If you don't want to deal with the public, don't deal with the public. If I'm not actually, it's gonna sound funny to a lot of people who know me. I'm not actually the most talkative person outside of certain arenas like comic book shows, my comic shop, and all that. Honestly, when I worked quote unquote regular jobs, most people thought I hardly ever spoke, and they were shocked whenever I did. Usually, I have to get to know somebody to feel comfortable. It's not shyness. People misread as a shyness. It's just I don't know a person. I don't have much to say to them. So in personal life, I don't actually go out and just say hi and get into a big conversation with anybody. I personally, am not usually, I have to know, like I said, or whatever. Now, with a shop, though, I realize this from the get-go. You have to address your customers. You don't want to be rude or whatever, so I put myself in a different mode. And, of course, because they're regular customers, you get to know them, I do become friendly with them, and there is stuff to talk about and such. Anyway, my point is, be personal. That's my biggest thing. Be personal, but again, learn when you're going overboard because you want to maintain that balance of being friendly and having a chat with somebody, but also they're there to buy books from you and you're there to sell it to them, so give them that time to do that. And let's see. So and also that's the one that she addresses, the organization. Tip for vendors: organized comics. This is the one I was saying. I'm strongly behind this. This is the one I've been preaching forever because this is me. This is my view. I'm not one of these vendors she's speaking about. A tip for vendors: organized comics. I would have spent some more time and money today had I hadn't worn myself out digging unorganized comics to find stuff on my list. Okay, you got enough gumption to get out to a show and take, as a vendor, right? And take your boxes and load them up and all that shit. You got enough wherewithal, what I'm trying to say, you got enough stamina to do that, right? Then get your books in order. I agree with her 100%. You don't realize how much you are cutting your own throat because you don't want to bother with organizing books. I'm sorry. Yes, it's tedious. Yes, it's boring. Whatever. But once you get it maintained to a certain degree, it's just like taking care or making your bed each day or whatever. You have to keep after it, but it isn't as bad once you've done it. You've got everything in order the first time. In fact, to be honest, after the last show I did, I was surprised how little of my books were disorganized. Because a lot of people think, oh, well, they're just going to get disorganized after people go through them, right? And so they use that as a cop-out and an excuse not to organize their books. That's stupid. No, you organize your books no matter what. But my point is, a lot of people think, oh, it's going to get messed up anyway. It don't get messed up that much. You're going to have to keep after it. That's part of your job. If you're selling for a living, comics or anything that's likened to where it needs organization like that, you do it because people don't want to search forever and stuff. I have a guy who I know who says people like to thrill of the hunt. Not in that sense. Yeah, they like going out to a show and seeing how am I going to find this book. They don't like going through a total random mess of books that takes forever to go through, like she's pointing out. They don't like that. And I argued with him back before I ever had a shop about that viewpoint. Because again, I as a customer, I did not like that. And so I wouldn't expect other people to like it either. Most people, not that my viewpoint is going to be everybody's viewpoint, but most people, they want organization on stuff they're looking through. They want to be able to quickly go to it and see if it's got what they want and what have you. I know other vendors figure, well, they may stumble across something that they may have not thought about before. True, But that's not really an excuse for being a messy vendor and not getting your stuff in order. Honestly, if you don't got your stuff in order, you're just lazy. I'm gonna call it like it is. You're just lazy. There's no reason not to put the stuff in order, and you have very much more incentive to do so. Let's see, tip for vendors. Okay, and she also says, especially the non-dollar comic vendors. I was looking through some higher value pieces, but when I see box after box of mix up titles, I lose interest fast. Okay, she doesn't make a distinction but I want to point out something. She's making a distinction there between, especially when you're doing higher price books that should be in order. I'll go further. No, they all should be in order. I'll back her up to, more than that. Like I said, because dollar books, that's my forte, really. I mean, that's the thing that brought me the most traffic in my shop. I was, king of the dollar boxes, basically. I was the one that really instigated dollar boxes in this area because when I opened, nobody else was doing them. Now they all do. Anyway, but I've always organized them too. Just because they're cheaper product doesn't mean that people, still want to spend hours going through it. In fact, again, they're going to give them even more easily because they're cheaper. So don't. I want to sell the stuff. So I even organize my quarter books, and that's almost 100% unheard of with vendors and stuff. You can blame it on OCD. There might be a degree of that, but also the same principle. It's like I try to keep everything as organized as possible. I'll stress it one more time. I stress it several times. It can only help you as a vendor, and it'll help you as a customer is looking for stuff. But she says overall she had a great time and all that. So that's how she concludes there. So I think I addressed everything she pointed out. But and then also, not that they have a problem with this at the show, because all the vendors seem to be nice and decent people and all this, and they all look nice and clean and all this. But there's other conventions and certainly other shops in the country and such that people don't always practice the proper hygiene or the cleanup as they should, or the booth or the shop. Because I'm extending this beyond conventions. I'm also talking about in terms of shops and stuff. Clean up if you aren't already. If you're a dirty person, well, get out of that habit, because you're getting your son to the public. You got to think of what they want, not what you want. Nobody wants a skanky, nasty, smelly piece of dark dungeon type shop. Or they want to go to a vendor's booth that's, you feel like you have to wash your hands as soon as you go out. I mean, merely books, bookstores and stuff, comic books, all that. You're going to get, some dust issues from time to time. That's just nature of the habit, but maintain it. Go, dust it every once in a while. As often as possible. Definitely clean your shop, have it organized. Try not to clutter it. Even if this is something I did at my shop. If I didn't have space to put everything out, I want to sell the stuff immediately. You get product, you want to sell it. But you're going to sell less stuff if your stuff is all cluttered. It's best not to bring as much stuff to a show or at a shop. It's best not to put as much stuff on the floor if it means it's going to all be cluttered. You want to have a presentable store. You want it to look nice. One thing I never felt personally that I got my shop as clean as I wanted to. Okay, but one of the most compliments I got was how nice and clean and organized my shop was, which I definitely took with great appreciation, and that people know that's that. Like I said, me personally, it's like anybody else. They clean their own house, and somebody says, "Oh, you keep a nice house," or whatever, and in your own mind, you're like, "Yeah, but I wish I could get to that corner or whatever." But the truth is, though, like I said, the general compliment I got was that I kept a nice shop, and I do take pride in that. And I take pride in that with my booth. I like that people say when they see my booth, they think it looks professional and all that. I work with what I have. I'm not independently wealthy to this day. I'm not rich or nothing, but I try to present my stuff in as best of a manner as I can and make it look as nice as I can. I used to be, I'm still kind of made fun of, from people I know whenever I take some bags and boards off books that aren't really too bad looking and swap them out with new stuff because I want everything to look as nice as I can. Sometimes with these shows, I want it, they're not all as good of bags and stuff as I want, but that's something I go through. I try to replace those as I get the chance because, again, presentation is important. You want your customers to see it, and if you respect them by trying to present stuff to them in an organized, clean manner, they'll respect you more in return, in a sense, because they want to deal with somebody who's clean and organized and thinks of them. So I'm trying to think what else to mention here. And I realize, again, with a lot of these vlogs, because they're off the cuff and unedited and all that, I come off sometimes rambling. I'm sorry if so, and I may repeat points, but I just wanted to make this vlog, like I said, because I felt that some of these points, like what Sherry there had mentioned, was important. Oh, also, like you got, when you do shows, some of this sounds like no-brainer stuff, but you want to bring plenty of change if you're a vendor. I kept getting handed 20s all day long, and I thought I had plenty of ones with me, but it lasted through the show. I brought enough that they lasted, but I was getting close there to, to not having any ones left. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I want to discuss off the top of my head right now. But another thing, I have a friend named Danny he's been a customer of mine for years and years, and he's been a collector and such. But recently, like a lot of collectors and such, he's starting to dip his hand a little bit into the dealing and being a vendor at some shows. But in his case, he's selling anime, and him and his daughter and wife, they sell anime and manga stuff. So he was wondering about, like, maybe the show that Robert is doing could have more anime dealers, and see, I agree with that too, because again, we want to keep a pure comic book show, but manga is comic. Manga is the word for comic in Japan. It's just Japanese comics, and to me, comics are comics all the world over, So if you got somebody specializes in that, there are people looking for manga who are more into manga than the American variation. So you want to meet that need too. It still fits the theme. It doesn't take it out of the realm of comic book collecting. It is comic book collecting. And even, anime stuff complements it, because a lot of manga is based on anime is based on manga, and vice versa, just like with comics in America. You got the anime comic book related stuff, and vice versa. So yeah, so that's another thing. If you do a mixed comic book show, or a predominantly comic show, but you want to mix it with anime and manga, like I say, to me, it's appropriate. It is the same stuff, really, just from another country. But yeah, I think I made my point there. I don't want this video go on too much longer, as it is, and bore everybody to death. Too late, right? But I'm going to do another show in October. So if you're in the area, it's Evansville, Indiana. It's the U.S. or the National Guard Armory, and it's going to be the Fall Craft Fair, which is going to be mostly like a flea market with crafts dealers and such. But I'm going to be there selling comics. I don't know if there's going to be how many other people might be selling comics or toys or that related subject matter, but I will be there. So I hope that if nothing else, you come and check that out for me, if not anything else. And then there's going to be free admission to that one. Now, RaptorCon is more of a pop culture show, and again, like I said, there's a place for that, and I'm part of that show, so I would definitely want to, help promote it as well. But it, like I said, it has plenty of comic book dealers too. But it also has media guests. It has special speakers. It has Santa Claus is going to be there, because this is going to be RaptorCon 2, which is in December 5th or 6th or 7th, 2022. That will also be at the National Guard Armory. I should stress that if you were at the last one, it was at the 4-H Center, but this one's going to be at the National Guard Armory. And so my next two shows are both at the National Guard Armory. Just keep that simple, so for you to remember if you do go. And I'm going to do a video in honor of the 100th birthday for Stan Lee, because if he had still been alive, this would have been the 100th year since his birth. It's still the 100th year since his birth. So I'm going to make a video presentation that will be shown at that show while you can come out and see me as a vendor on the floor. And there's going to be a lot of events there, so it's going to be a big deal. Now it does have an admission price. I think it's like $20 for. I think it's $20 for the weekend or something like that. But anyway, it's somewhere in the area. You can check it www.theraptorcon.com, and but it's got a lot going on, and it's going to be a great show. And I hope you come out and check it out too, and support these local. If you're in the area, support these local shows. If you're not in the area, help come and support these shows at Evansville and elsewhere in the country too. Yep, I think that's it. Okay, I'm through with rambling. So thanks, and I'll see you hopefully at the shows. If not, I'll see you here on YouTube at some other point, making some other vlog or some other video. Thanks. Yay!